Hello and welcome to this, the latest edition of Desert Island Movies. Now, joining us today is probably my most special guest in a whole host of special guests that I have had. But this is fantastic. I can only introduce Mr. Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman and Robin, TV legend. So, welcome, hello, and again, welcome to the island.
Hello, citizen.
How are we doing today?
Oh, still climbing the walls, but for different reasons.
That's fantastic. So, just for those who've never watched the show before, and if you're still watching, I'm surprised if you haven't. Basically it's very easy rules. You cannot pick all the same films from. You cannot pick like one, two, and three. So you cannot pick Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And the only other rule is you cannot pick an entire film series as one choice. So you can't pick all the Harry Potter films as one choice. You can't do that. So other than that, those are the rules. So with no further ado, Mr. Burt Ward. TV legend, Robin, the boy wonder. Can you tell us what is your first movie pick, please?
Let's see. I would see, well, because in my mind, I categorize it. If I was on a deserted island or a desert island, as you call it, I would want a little variety. So I pick some kind of a family film, which something that I could enjoy watching over and over, and I do enjoy watching it over. And then I think my other films are more energetic films. You know what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
things like that. So my first film, which is everybody I'm sure has seen it, is called Home Alone.
Get that little creep!
With
Amazing.
Macaulay Culkin and Joe Pesci. That came out in 1990, and it's a Christmas classic, is what I would call it.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's always good for a laugh, and I enjoyed it very, very much.
So is this a film you watch quite a lot, or is it just watched at Christmas, or do you watch it all year round?
Yeah, pretty much at Christmas. I work 7 days a week, so I don't have a lot of time for watching as many films as I'd like. But I do. I kind of treasure my Christmas, with the Christmas music and the Christmas tree and all of the Christmas spirit and things like that. And that's sort of part of my Christmas that I look forward to every year.
So yeah, it's Christmas tradition in the Ward household then.
Correct.
Perfect. So is there any particular scene that you love in the film, or anything that really drew you to it originally?
Well, I just like the humor, I mean, it's visual humor. It's really, I mean, it's classic humor, It's not the joke telling humor that you see of these stand-up comedians. It's the physical thing. It kind of reminds me of the old shows like Laurel and Hardy,
Hmm.
or Abbott and Costello. It's just funny things to watch, and it's heartwarming. I mean, here is this little kid, and he's like against this seemingly impossible thing of two house robbers gonna rob his house, and he's by himself, and look how creative he is. And I think the one scene particularly I like is almost near the end, where they finally get in his house, and he's upstairs, and they've gotten knocked down a couple of times by all kinds of heavy things, swinging down and hitting him in the head, paint can and stuff like that. But there's where finally one of the robbers, grabs his leg and got him by the leg and is pulling him towards him, and he sees his pet spider, this giant tarantula, and he picks up the tarantula, McCulkey, and he puts it right on the guy's face, who obviously screams and lets go of him. I mean, it's just funny kind of humor. So
Mm,
I enjoy it very much.
excellent. So how many times do you reckon you've seen this film over the years?
Probably 20, 30 times.
Wow, that's quite a lot. So are you one of those that knows it verbatim, or do you just revel in the
No,
moment with the family?
yeah, I don't memorize the, it's so funny having been on Batman, and when
Mm,
I go out and make personal appearances, I have these people that are like so into it. They'll say, remember a certain show with the Joker? And I said, oh yeah, uh-huh. Well, remember there was that scene where you were fighting these 8 guys? Yeah, I kind of remember that. Well, what was the name of the stuntman who was second from the left? Come on, I mean, there are people that are real Bat fans that know those answers.
Yeah, yeah, no, for
So,
sure.
so for me, it's kind of a general entertainment. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Absolutely. And you're saying about the comedic violence and stuff, it's actually probably not too far removed from what you used to get involved in Batman and Robin with some of the fight sequences.
Right. Well, ours was a little more sophisticated. Ours was played serious for children for the
Yeah.
superhero value. Every kid wanted to be Batman or Robin. I can imagine, fighting heinous villains, climbing walls in buildings, riding in the Batmobile. I mean, it was a total fantasy for kids. But our humor was not for the children, it was for the adults and the teenagers. And it was the campy style of taking something written funny, playing
Mhm.
it very serious, totally serious. You know what I mean? So it's more of the style of humor. If you think about movie in terms of movies, like maybe a Peter Sellers, who would
Yes.
do like the Pink Panther or Being There. Another one of my favorite films
Hmm.
where he's totally serious in what he does. But
Yeah.
it's just hilarious. And what makes it so funny is he's just so sincere and just
Yeah.
so just doing it like a regular person.
Yeah. No, it's great. Home Alone, this is not the first time somebody said Home Alone. We have had it before. So it's obviously a popular choice. A lot of people love it. So that is your first choice locked in. So we've got Home Alone. So
Right.
before we carry on with your second choice, we will carry on talking a little bit about Batman, if that is okay with you.
Sure.
Because yeah, so where you were saying about, you taking it all it was all done very seriously and stuff. I mean, did you know what you were creating at the time? When you were making it, did everybody realize what you had on your hands here, or was it?
No, I don't think when we first started they knew. I mean, we knew we had a satirical show,
Hmm.
which was, to my knowledge, I don't recall any other a satirical show on television. You know, in the days of the '60s, there were mainly like what I would call police movies where
Yeah.
you got policemen and they're the good guys and then you got the bad guys and they're chasing them and stuff, and it's all very serious. Like Dragnet was a
Yes.
famous TV series, and Perry Mason, and I mean all these dramatic series. And then you had the medical shows, like the various medical shows where you've got doctors and there's somebody sick and they're trying to save a life, you know. But don't recall ever seeing anything that was like Batman, because we
Mm.
used to say that we put on our tights to put on the world, you know.
Wow.
That what we did, and my gosh, the audience was so gigantic when we came out on January 12th of 1966. It
Hmm.
was twice a week. We became the number one and number two show in the entire world. Number one and
Wow.
number two. Nobody even close to us. And they had millions of Bat fans. I mean, we would get, I think in 1 month, I got 300,000 fan mails.
Wow.
300,000. And, you
Wow.
can imagine for everyone that took the time to write, how many, thought about it, but just didn't get around to
Yeah.
it. So Batman was huge, really, really huge. I would go out and make personal appearance. My first personal appearance was actually by myself. Adam West, who played Batman. He was in New York playing Shea Stadium and filled Shea Stadium. Okay,
Wow.
and I went to an appearance up in the state of Washington, a city called Tacoma, Seattle Tacoma area of Washington, and there was a big mall, and it was and I remember that they had handed out raffle tickets, and over 310,000 raffle tickets were handed out over the weekend that I was there. 310,000.
It's absolutely bananas.
And the people were parked. You could we had to walk quite a bit of the way, because people were parked within 6 blocks of the mall, parked in the streets. You couldn't even drive in to be there. I just couldn't believe it because I was shooting on a sound stage, and they're cold big sound stages,
Yeah.
and I'm like 21 years old, and the next youngest person to me is Adam West, who was like 37 at the time, and everybody else, all the crew on the set, were like they're in their 50s and 60s because these are the top pros in the business.
Yeah.
20th Century Fox had the best of the best. So for me, I was kind of like alone most of the time, and you're sitting there all day long. And the way it's not quite as glamorous when you film a TV show or a movie, because it's like you wait 45 minutes before each shot. That's about it. You wait about 30 to 45 minutes, and then
Wow.
you get up and work for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you go back and you wait for another 45 minutes. And then you could have multiple takes because something was wrong with the film or something was wrong with the sound. I mean, oh my goodness. Or something was wrong with your wardrobe, or something was wrong with the makeup, or somebody was in the back, or something, some light was reflecting off the sun, or it's just a million things can go wrong. That's why it took so long to make a show. But when they actually, I watched the first one on the opening night because I was just filming my part. I wasn't seeing, and I mean, my part was with Adam, Batman and Robin together. And then at the kind of the climactic points of the show where we were fighting the villains. But there were other scenes where the villains were in their own hideout. There
Yeah.
were scenes that we weren't aware of. There was all the graphics that wasn't put on. I mean, the pows and the zaps and things like
Yeah.
that. We didn't know about the Batman theme music. We didn't know
Cool.
about the
Yeah.
sound effects they would put with the car starting up with the like jet engines type of thing. I mean, there was so much that was added. So when I first saw it on the opening night, I was like, wow, this is a really good show. I think people are going to like it. And they went nuts. But only when I actually went out and made an appearance and I saw how people really reacted did I really realize what an impression it had made.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that level of popularity and I suppose fame straight away? As you were saying, you were 21 years old. How
Yeah,
do you
but
deal with that? Because it must have been crazy.
Not really, and I'll tell you why. Because mainly people recognize me with my costume on. Only
Yeah.
in the beginning of the show and at the end of each episode was it out of costume. So unless somebody knew I was there, like if somebody said, "Oh, well, Burt Ward is here in this restaurant or something," where people would actually look. But if they didn't know, they would not know unless I was in costume. Now, when I was in costume and I make appearances, I mean, people are standing in line like 6 and 7 hours in line, holding their kids. And by the time they get up there, the kids have fallen asleep in their arms. I mean, and there's nothing you could do about it. I mean, that many people. I mean, we hold arena records in Chicago at McCulloch Place. We 160 some odd thousand people on a weekend, and Cobo Hall in Detroit. More than these rock groups, 188,000 paid attendance to see Adam West and I on a weekend. I mean, Batman. I remember Adam came to me one time. He says, Bert, this is the century of the three B's. I said, the three B's? Yes, yes. Bond, Beatles, and Batman.
Yeah. He wasn't wrong. That's crazy. So you had, I mean, for those of you that follow Screen One will know that I'm currently doing a series rewatch of Batman, and we're going through episode by episode every day. I'm posting thoughts and what goes on in every episode. And the one thing that really jumps out, because kind of in your memory, you remember the Penguin, Burgess Meredith. You
Sure.
remember Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. You remember the various Catwomen, and obviously Cesar Romero as the Joker. But you have a huge amount of, and I can understate this, of major celebrities as villains. I mean,
Absolutely.
you had everybody from Vincent Price, Liberace, Shelley Winters. That's just three of them. I
Oh,
mean,
and then the old time greats, like one show with Black Widow was Tallulah Bankhead,
yeah,
you know. and it was just it was amazing. And then current people, we had people like Lurch,
Yeah.
and then we had there were so many stars that wanted to get on that there were not enough roles. They
Right.
created this extra thing of Batman and Robin climbing up outside a building and a window
Yes.
open.
The window
And
opened.
there is a Jerry Lewis, or
Andy Davis Jr.
Dick Clark, or I mean, there were
Mhm.
so many different current people there. Captain Clink, and just so many different celebrities, and that's how they could get on the show, because everybody wanted to be on Batman.
That's crazy. So did you have any particular, I mean, well, two things really. Were you ever starstruck by anybody? And did you have any particular favorite villain that you liked, having episodes with? Is there?
Well, to answer your first question, I don't think starstruck was the
Mm,
right word, because that it kind of is, to me, that's kind of an extreme
yeah.
thing. But for me, I was like, I would call myself the kid in the candy store. That every week there was some famous person that I'd seen on TV or in
Yeah.
the movies. So for me, I was like, wow, what a great opportunity, but not to the point of starstruck where you couldn't even think what you're doing. Because we have people here in the U.S. that are starstruck that like they're in a daze or something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So who did you have a particular favorite villain as Robin, or you're not allowed?
No, no,
Everyone.
no, 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 no. I mean, because every one of these actors, I mean, Cliff Robertson, he played a character called Shane, a
Mm,
takeoff of the old Western Shane.
yeah.
And Howard Duff and Ida Lupino, and I mean, just so many great actors and actresses, and each one brought their talent to their character.
Mm,
And I would speak to them in between shots. I mean, you're sitting around for 45 minutes between shots, so sometimes I would talk to them,
mm,
and all of them incredibly professional, but
mm.
each one had, and I could tell from speaking with them, everyone loved to do Batman. And one
Yeah.
of the reasons they loved to do it was because in the roles that they played in movies and things like that, they were very set, like a certain character with a certain kind of limitation,
Yeah.
in some ways. Where with Batman, they were villains. I mean, they
Yeah.
could be as big or bigger than life as they wanted to be, and it worked out great.
Yeah, I've just watched, funny enough, the Liberace episodes, and Chandel
John Dell, and
and
the
his
other
brother
character he
Harry.
played was
Harry,
Finger.
yeah,
Yes.
and Liberace looks like he's having a whale of a time.
Oh, everyone did. They all did. It was because it was so unlimited. They could be as
Mm,
big and broad, which you normally are never allowed to do. You're focused on a character with its flaws and goods and bads and things like that, which is limiting, but not on
mm.
Batman.
They could go as crazy as they wanted. That is amazing. So I think it's time we better get. Otherwise, we're going to talk about Batman all day. We better
All right.
get on to your second film choice, and then we'll come back for a little bit more Batman, and then we'll move on to what you're doing these days. So, yeah. So let's have it then. What would be your second movie on the island?
Well, I like action movies. I mean, Batman was a lot of action and stuff like that. And one of the action movies that I liked a lot was called Olympus Has Fallen.
We have contact from inside the White House.
Identify yourself.
309er.
Jesus, Banning?
Is the same guy that was removed from the president's detail?
He is ex-special forces.
40 commandos breached the gate. 28 are left. Can we trust him? With all due respect, I'm the best hope you've got.
Oh yes,
That came out in 2013 with Gerard Butler.
yeah,
He did a fabulous job. Now that's a movie with the kind of action. Oh my goodness! I mean, and it's very similar because there's another movie that was very similar to it called White House Down,
that's
and
correct.
and that was a great one with Channing Tatum,
Yeah.
and Jamie Foxx. I mean, very similar in some ways, but lots of amazing action that cinematically it's just it's exciting, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean it's got quite the cast as well, because not only Gerard Butler, you have Aaron Eckhart, the fantastic Morgan Freeman, Angela Bassett, also amazing. So yeah, and you know this thing of the White House being taken over and by
Yeah.
terrorists and escaping all that kind of stuff. So you said you like your action films. Is it what particularly draws you to that kind of scenario? Is it
The because as a person who's been involved in the making of films as
yeah
an actor, and now actually here at our home, we have we actually have our own studio here at our house. My
wow
wife and I, in addition to all of the work that we'll talk about with our animals and our charity
Mhm.
with helping dogs and cats live longer, we also have a property in the heart of our city. We have 5 acres, and we have our own animation studio. We have our own recording studio. We have our own sound stage.
wow
We are going to be making television series and feature films ourselves, and we have all our own equipment. And we have some of the best technology because I love 3D animation, but I
Mm.
mean photorealistic. I mean there is now technology out there, and in fact I want to digress from and tell you when I met my wife 35 years ago.
Mhm.
She very brilliant businesswoman. My wife, one of the most successful businesswomen in the U.S. and she and her father they own 3,600 companies with annual sales of $26 billion. Okay, I mean
Wow.
she's a tremendous success in business, but she had a tremendous foresight of the future. And I
Yeah.
was talking to her at the time, and there was very little animation then. It was very a beginning type of thing. And she said to me, and something that I just couldn't accept. She said, "You know, Bert, one person someday will sit down by themselves at a computer and make an entire feature film." And I said, "Tracy, don't ever tell anybody that. They're going to think you're nuts. They're going to think you belong in a mental institution. No way could that ever happen. You watch these movies, some of these Disney movies, and they have 500 animators and 300 compositors and this and that. And oh my God, the crews and the hundreds of millions of dollars. Nobody can." And you know what? It's coming true.
Yeah.
It isn't out yet. It isn't out yet. But I'll tell you, there is now technology that you can use computer animation to be not just lifelike, but so real that you
Mm.
cannot tell the difference. You cannot, there's no one that can
Yeah.
tell that this isn't filming of
Yeah.
and then you can do unlimited things, unlimited armies, unlimited sets, unlimited worlds, just unbelievable the technology there is now. And the big studios are, I mean, they're certainly aware of it, but they're also caught up and they're making their tent films, and there's a certain level of limitation that they have. They can't really take a chance of coming out with anything too different. That's why you see films that are remade and films that are different, like episodes or different versions of it coming out. you know but
Yeah.
the technology is there, and my wife and I are on the forefront of that technology. And so we're excited about putting out things that no one has ever seen before, but also things that are tremendous action, but family oriented. We're
Yeah.
very much about the family, the kids of, we call them kids of all ages, whether you're young or old, you're young of heart, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, which, is kind of what the basis of Olympus Has Fallen is a bit about, isn't it? There's family
Yeah.
involved in that as well. So,
Yes.
and yeah, so that's great. And you, as you were saying, Hollywood has this thing of making films that that pretty much the same. And like you said, you had White House Down at the same time as Olympus Has Fallen, almost few weeks apart when they were released. So yeah, no, absolutely. So what is it about Olympus Has Fallen that you preferred over White House Down then? Was there anything in particular that makes you like that one more than the other?
Yeah, for whatever reason, for me, the Olympus Has Fallen is something I could watch more often than I could White House Down.
Hmm.
And not because it wasn't made well; they were both brilliantly made. But
Mm.
the storyline, there was a thing with the president in that where the president was like in this underground thing, and
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and that was not as exciting for me.
yeah,
Um, but I love the action stuff, and that's really I was brought up as a martial artist, and I like the action and the fight scenes and the things like that. That to me is very entertaining.
Yeah, you're beautifully segueing into my next questions. It's great with the martial arts. So coming on to that in just a second. So before I get to so with Olympus Has Fallen, did you like the sequels as much, or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I like the Gerard Butler films. I mean,
okay,
he's just he's a very talented actor, amazing actor, and it just great. And it's so enjoyable. It's so easy to just let yourself, enjoy the film and just be, part of the action, and in the sense of, getting caught up in the anticipation and suspense.
that's amazing. So we're locking in Olympus Has Fallen as your second choice. So as you just briefly touched on there, we're now going to get into a bit with Batman. You were, obviously, like saying, involved in the fight scenes. What a lot of people probably didn't know was you were actually, I shouldn't say were, are a karate black belt, I believe.
Yeah, yes. Well, and also a piece of trivia for your viewers and listeners is that where I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in the same condominium complex as is probably the most famous cinematic martial artist of all time, Bruce Lee. And
Yeah.
he and I were friends. And a piece of trivia is that, I mean, Bruce Lee, I don't know anybody will ever cinematically reproduce what he did in terms of people being just thrilled with his performances. But a piece of trivia is that Bruce Lee's first filmed fight scene of his career, where he was actually being filmed, was fighting me on Batman. He was cast as the Green Hornet in a television series produced by the same executive producer that produced Batman. And at Batman, again, #1 and #2, because we were on twice a week in the entire world. We came on in January of 1966, and the Green Hornet was coming on in September of 67 or 66, excuse me. And what better way to launch their series than to have them, those crime fighters appear on Batman, because everybody was watching Batman. And it was a great episode. And in the episode, you see Batman and Robin didn't know that the Green Hornet and Kato were good guys. And vice versa, the Green Hornet and Kato didn't know that Batman and Robin were good guys. We each thought the other were bad guys.
Yeah.
That's why we ended up getting into a fight. And it was pretty terrific, And then Bruce and I, because we were friends, we would occasionally go out to dinner down into Chinatown. And this was a time when his wife Linda and they had their son Brandon, who was only 6 months old at that time.
Wow.
And I mean, you're really going way back. And but he was always a funny, nice guy. Yes, he was cocky, but not in an offensive way. He was just he was very confident and a really nice person, and a lot of fun. You could talk with him and you'd be laughing in 5 minutes. He just had a very happy-go-lucky attitude.
So did Bruce choreograph the fight sequences, or was that all done separately still at that point? Or were you involved in the choreography at all, if you do?
No. It's funny. Adam and I had stuntmen, okay? And the problem I had with my stuntman is that he didn't look like me. So the only stunts he could seem to do would be things where they're really far off, So like there would be they would choreograph the fight scene because it would go on and on and on, right? But that was in the long shots, and I would always do the close shots, which is great because I love the fight scenes. But what I did love were the explosions and the second and third degree burns from things that weren't supposed to explode, and 2x4s that were blown off a set from an explosion and broke my nose. And I mean, there was a lot of danger on Batman. There was these gases that were used in the Penguins, gases that, inhalate that, and you have to end up getting oxygen treatment, and harnesses for lifting things that the harness broke and steel hit you in the face. And I mean, it was a dangerous show to make Batman. Oh my goodness. There were times that I've said, I'm not sure I'm going to survive this show.
So so it wouldn't be made the same way if it was made today then, quite clearly. Because I was going to ask you about all those gases. All the villains seem to be denoted by the different color gas they had. Some had orange, some had red, some had blue, some had green. So, was there a lot of smoke on set all the time?
Uh, Not all the time, a lot every day with the Penguin. But
Yeah.
there's other kinds of explosions they have, which are just as dangerous. Okay, and it not just explosion, car crashes, turned over. Like I was in the beginning episode, um, I of course played Robin, but
Mm.
there was a scene where the Riddler, Frank Gorshin, had captured Robin and made a death mask, a duplicate of my face, and put it on Jill St. John, who
Mm.
pretended to be Robin, and they were in a big Rolls Royce that ended up was turned over on the side, and I had to do the part that supposedly acting as though I was her. Anyway, because obviously they couldn't make her look just like me,
Yeah.
and so I was in a car that was burning. The car was supposed to be burning, okay? So on the outside, and I'm down in the car, and Frank Gorshin is above me, which you talk about claustrophobia. Wearing a costume with a cape,
Yeah.
and you can't see with a mask, and you're down in a car that someone's above you, and it's burning, and oh, that is not a great feeling. Anyway, he's supposed to climb out and jump to the ground. And I'm supposed to then come up after him and climb on the edge of the car. It's on its side now, come out through the driver's window, and then jump to the ground. But just before I jumped to the ground, unexpectedly and unplanned, the car blew up. I mean, it blew up. And I remember my only memory of that really was seeing the ground coming at my face like you couldn't believe the speed, because I was thrown to the ground. But when you're
Wow.
looking at the ground, it looks like it's coming to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And oh, it was. I mean, I think Batman would be made. They would be made pretty much the same way, but with a lot more safety
Mm.
things built in. Precautions and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So a few questions. It's probably more for my personal wondering because I watched it when I was little. It used to be on reruns here in the UK when I was growing
Right.
up in the 70s. I would run home from school because Batman was starting when we got on, and we would watch Batman relentlessly. And there are certain episodes I can remember clear as day, and then there are other ones I'm like, I don't remember this, but still, it was an amazing time. What the younger me and even the older me now rewatching it wants to know about those bat poles. So at the beginning of the show, where you lifted the head, turn the thing, and then the bookcase opens and you run and jump on the poles. How far did they go down? That's what I really want to know.
Okay. All right. Well, imagine that the bat poles were actually represented in a couple of different setups.
Yeah.
Okay. One of them was in Bruce Wayne's study,
Hmm.
where we lift Shakespeare's head, and I turn the knob, and the bookcase would slide open, and we'd slide, and we would go down about 8 feet, not terribly far. Okay, we go down about 8 feet, but the much more dangerous version was what we had to do for the feature film. We only had to do it once, and in
Yeah.
thinking about it, I really should never have done this. I mean, again, this talks about not being careful. If you've ever been in a soundstage, you know how gigantic they are. I mean, they're
Mm.
like 70, 80 feet tall.
Yeah.
The inside of these things are just gigantic. Okay. And they built two bat poles that went from the floor of the soundstage all the way up to the highest catwalk in that soundstage, which is, I think, it's got to be 65 or 70 feet. And the only way to get to it would be to go up these rickety wood stairs. I mean, you step on them and they kind of move when you step on them, and you
Yeah.
can see through them. So you're seeing that height as you're going higher and higher. And then you go up the next level and the next level. And then you get on this catwalk. And the catwalk, I mean, it's not solid like you think of a bridge. I mean, it has sway to it.
Mm.
That is very, and you're looking down, there are no nets. And then you walk over, and again, I don't know how Adam or I did this, but we got over to where, imagine where we're on a catwalk, and we get to a point where that pole, the Robin pole and the Batman pole, all the way from the ground, all the way up, they're attached to something hanging down. I mean, and they were right there, but there was no nets. We had to jump onto that pole. If we missed it, I would have been dead. I mean,
Yeah.
no kidding. And they warned us, like, even though Batman and Robin have gloves on, and even though you have boots on, just to give you an idea about the warning,
Oh,
you can't with your hands. If I held on going all the way down there at the speed that we came down, even with leather gloves, if I held on like that, it would have burnt through the gloves and given me would have taken the skin off my hands because of the distance and the weight.
oof.
What I had to do, and I was specifically told, is that as you're sliding down, you tighten, which slows you down, and let go. You tighten and let go, and tighten and let go, and tighten and let go, so that it doesn't, burn through your glove and burn your hand. The same thing with our boots. They said, don't get your legs near that pole. Take your boots and turn them in so that the sole, you can't get the bottom because nobody can turn that far, but you can get the edge of the rubber and let it do that. And by the time I got down to the bottom, the complete rubber sole was gone.
Wow.
I mean, it just carved it out. And I can't believe I did it. I'm even today. And I remember that point where they said, you got to just go for it.
Yeah.
Go halfway. And I jumped and I got that pole and he got that pole. And you're in a costume where you can't see clearly. And you got a cape on and you got tights on and you got utility belts and all of these things and bat boots that, I mean, they don't feel like regular shoes. And there was no room. I could have been killed. In fact, Batman had a great line on Batman where the Commissioner Gordon says to him, we were in Commissioner Gordon's offices. This is when we were fighting the 4 villains. And Commissioner Gordon says, Batman, any one of the 4 villains, in Gotham City could wreak havoc on our city. But the 4 of them together, the Riddler, the Catwoman, the Penguin, the Joker, what do you think they have in mind? And Batman very stoically says, I think their minimum objective is the entire world.
Mm.
Their minimum objective.
Yeah.
So in any event, it was a lot of fun, but very dangerous.
Would you recommend it to anybody at all?
I wouldn't recommend filming it like they did then. No,
Yeah.
no. It would. I mean, there were so many times that, I mean, I had a time where they told me, "Oh, Bert, I did not like the explosions."
Yeah.
Because the special effects guys were unpredictable in my opinion, and irrespective of what they said, I didn't always trust them. I mean, not that they would intentionally do anything. No, of course not. But like there was one time where I was about 10 feet away from an explosion, and I knew when it was going to explode because I knew the line that they were going to explode it on. And I talked to him about it. I said, I'm very uncomfortable. Don't worry, the explosion's going to go down. Don't worry about it. There's no way it could go, towards you. It's only going to go straight down, but it's going to make a big bang. And, with a puff of smoke and big thing of smoke, it's going to look great, but you have no worry. And you're 10 feet away. Something told me that something could go wrong. I just, you innately feel this.
Yeah.
And just the split second when I knew they were saying the word, I closed my eyes and the explosion came right out, 10 feet across, 2nd-degree burns on my face. When I got to the emergency hospital, the doctor told me, because I had 2nd-degree burns on my eyelids, that if I had not closed my eyes, I would be blind.
That is absolutely terrifying.
That's how serious. That's how really serious that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, so not all fun and games on the Batman set then. So it looked good though. But yeah.
I'm here, thank goodness.
Yes, absolutely. Thank goodness. Yes, no, I'm very pleased with that. So, so did Adam have similar problems with all of this going on as well? Was he?
Well, because he wore a cowl,
Yeah.
his stuntman did all of his stunts.
Oh, of course.
You know, and And because my stuntman, a really nice man, but he had a very large nose. He looked like Cyrano de Bergerac. And there's no way that he looked like me. So they always they always used me on anything that was even midway to close.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, wow, that's yeah, that's a great answer, by the way. So yeah, so I suppose finally I need to around when we're talking about Batman. So obviously after Batman ended, you still did stuff, and you even came back to Batman a few years ago for the animated movies. How was
Yes,
that? I
oh,
presume you were friendly with Adam all the way along, but how was it getting back in sort of Batman mode all after all those years?
well, you know, you need to understand something. People would ask me that question all the time. Excuse me. They say, well, how is it like playing Robin again? Well, let me tell you something. When I was cast in the role,
Mm,
there were 1,100 young actors that were interviewed for this role. 1,100, they told me. And they told me that the reason they picked me out of 1,100 people was that in their minds, forgetting television, if there really was a Robin, I mean, like the real thing, they said, Bert, you personally, in our minds, you would be Robin. So we don't want you to put on a quote act. We want you to just literally do two things: be enthusiastic, which is very easy for me, and two, be yourself. So
mm,
when I would, years later, they say, oh, well, are you going to, how hard is it going to get back into the character? Well, it's like saying, how hard is it going to be yourself?
yeah,
Not hard at all.
yeah. So, well, did you enjoy going back to it?
Yeah, of course. Well, and then I did a guest on Supergirl,
Yes.
uh, and it was I've always enjoyed it. And then there was a bunch of other projects that Adam and I have done. There were animated Batman characters with a character called Batmite. It was done by one of the prominent production houses in Hollywood, and so we had a great time, and Batman was such a gigantic success. I've actually starred in 40 films for television,
Yeah.
but Batman was so big that and people ask, well, how does it feel, this one gigantic show and typecasting, all that? And I said, no, you don't understand. The way I look at it is, you can have a glass that is full. It
Mm,
could be full with a bunch of different projects, or full with one major project and a bunch of smaller projects. But the glass is still full, and the
yeah.
life is still full and complete.
That's amazing. That's a really brilliant way to look at it. You've just actually triggered a memory in my head. I used to have a 45, a Batman 45. It was on Target label. Um,
Uh-huh.
it was Batman and Robin versus the Tickler, of all things. And it was a 45. Again, something used to get played in my house a lot.
Oh
A
yeah.
And then there's a thing on the other side where Adam's talking about how it's actually a special back disc, and if you put it up to your crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's that is some fantastic memories. But that is just fantastic. I can't say any more. So while I can't say any more on that, let's move on to your third movie choice. So, what is your third choice?
Well, as I told you, I like action films, right?
Yes, yes, you
And
do.
for me, one film that was absolutely spectacular as an action film, and actually as a whole film,
Mm,
okay, it had a 21-minute nonstop action scene.
hmm
You know what that film is?
I'm thinking Old Boy, but
21 minutes. I don't know in history if any feature film ever
yeah,
had even near a 21-minute non-stop action scene.
yeah, no, absolutely. So, when did you first see that one? When did it?
Oh,
Watch?
I've seen that years ago. And I'll tell you the name of the movie because I don't
Yeah.
think you got it. It's Extraction 2.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes,
Extraction 2
Netflix.
with Chris Hemsworth. Yes.
Yes.
Let's find out.
I mean, can you imagine filming a 21-minute nonstop action film, a scene like that. Well, it's a conglomerate of scenes, but 21 minutes of nonstop action.
Yeah, it's yeah, because obviously it follows up the original Extraction.
Yeah.
It's yeah, because there's the bit on the train, isn't there? All that
Yeah,
kind of,
that's yeah.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, it's action wise, that film is incredible. A bit bananas in places where he's literally standing with no cover and there's all these bullets everywhere and not one of them hits him, which I always was I was like,
Yeah.
But
And,
like
and
you say, it's
I think the director of the film was a stuntman, and I
yeah,
remember watching an interview where the two of them were discussing it. And what a creative thing on the part of the stuntman who was the director. I mean, really well done. I mean, and some of
yeah,
the stuff with this helicopter, getting real close to that train and stuff, that's dangerous stuff.
yeah. Sam Hargrave was the director.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, oh wow. So that's an original choice. We've not had that before. I'm quite impressed there. So yeah, so again, do you watch a lot? You say you don't get to watch loads of films, but are you very picky about your film choices when you watch something? Do you
Yeah, I like something that is believable, that's sincere, that doesn't appear to be somebody's rehash of something else, and something that that you can let yourself see it and enjoy being involved with it. You can allow yourself to be involved. For me, I can't always get into a film because I don't. I mean, because of filming films, it's harder for me to accept something real, or because I'll look at something, oh, I see how they shot that, or this, you get you a little bit jaded in some ways, but I mean, there are some really marvelous films. So many, there are tons of wonderful films out there. That's why my wife and I are very excited about making our own films.
yeah, I was going to say, so do any of these films like Extraction 2, do they inspire you into what you're thinking of doing, or do
Oh
they
yes, oh yes, oh yes. And the thing is, but to be able to do it so it's completely realistic. I mean, honestly, you can't tell. There's been 3D movies where you see characters out there, and
Mm,
and you can tell. Well, they look really pretty good, but they're obviously not a real human. But
yeah,
not anymore. Oh no, not anymore. In fact, I think this new Marvel film, and I haven't seen it yet. I've seen parts of it, clips of it. There's a Marvel film with I think it's Captain America. You
Brave
know,
New World, yeah, it's just come out, and as this is
yeah,
being recorded last week, yeah.
and that was done in 3D.
Mm,
Movie's 3D,
yeah,
and you look at it, you can't tell it's not real. It's
yeah,
it's really well done. My wife and I operate this charity. We
mm,
love animals, and we've saved more than 15,500 dogs. Everyone would have been put to death. We rescued them and found each and every one a safe, loving home, and provided all their medical care while we had them, and trained them, and helped them, nurse them back to health in cases where they weren't healthy. I mean, all of that has been our charity. But because pets are a big part of many people's lives. Here in the United States, they say that 80% of the population of our country lives in a household where there's at least one pet.
mm,
And they say there's also 80 million dogs in the United States,
wow,
in 67 million households.
yeah,
Long story short, people love their animals, particularly older people where maybe their kids have grown up and moved out, and maybe they've lost their spouse, and that dog or that cat, that is all they've got left. And they love that animal. And animals live such short lives. I mean, the giant breeds that you see in the photo behind me, and by the way, that's not photoshopped. There's actually that's a screenshot from an 11-minute video of all these dogs moving at the same time in our bedroom, because we have 50 in our house, and these are giant dogs. These aren't like Chihuahuas. These are really big dogs. But the point is, they only live 6 to 8 years, or 7 to 9 years, and
yeah,
we've spent millions of dollars of our own money and to develop a food that is different than any other food in the world, and a way to feed dogs. I don't know if you have any pets, but if you had a pet cat or a pet dog, we have a technology that we use. not just the food, but how you care for them, how you feed them. And our animals are living, like I said, in their 20s and sometimes over 30 years of age. I've got 5 dogs here right now, here in our home, that are over 20 years old. Nobody's been able to do that. And by the way, with our food, it's called Gentle Giants. It's coming all over Europe. You know what I mean? We're going to have it. It comes in different sizes. We have a chicken. We have a real beef and real bacon. We have a wild caught salmon, but different, all kinds. Wonderful. But the point of it is, it's all non-GMO. And I don't know how familiar you are with genetically modified organisms. Now in America,
Yeah.
our food supply, people in our country are so unhealthy because everything has been genetically modified to accept pesticides. And what's happened, one of the reasons that dogs and cats don't live so long is they eat foods that, like plants or fruits or vegetables, or corn or wheat or soy, anything that's been grown where pesticides have been sprayed on it to kill pests, bugs and rodents and stuff like that. And it kills the pests. And the plant, with non-GMO, because it used to be if you sprayed a plant with pesticide, half the time you kill the plant, but not anymore. They have these where they've genetically changed the DNA of everything we eat. Almost, I think it's 95% of our food supply in the United States has been genetically modified to accept pesticides. So when a farmer grows a plant or a fruit or a vegetable and bugs attack it, he sprays it with a pesticide that kills the bugs, but it doesn't kill any of the plants because the plants have that in their DNA. But the problem is the dog, the cat that eats that fruit or vegetable or whatever is now taking that pesticide and it's causing cancer. And it's a major killer. The number one killer of pets now worldwide is cancer, and it's caused by pesticides. And people even say now, well, what about, organic, where they don't spray a pesticide? If the food isn't non-GMO, it means non-GMO means it wasn't genetically modified. They now genetically modified food, okay, and grow a plant that they could say is organic because no pesticide was sprayed on it, because they don't have to spray a pesticide. In the DNA, when a bug or rodent bites that plant, it releases a pesticide within the DNA. Okay, yeah. You don't need to spray it with a pesticide. So even organic isn't as good as non-GMO.
Wow, that's crazy.
So it's coming to UK, it's coming worldwide, Gentle Giants. We're going to do a lot of advertising, and people are going to have a chance to have their pets live into their 20s, and even maybe a few of them over 30. And the one thing that is so unique also about our food is that animals here on our food, we have 0 illness here. Our dogs and cats are so healthy. They don't go to a vet except every 3 years as required by federal law for a rabies update. We have no illness. So many people are spending fortunes. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but veterinary care is almost now expensive as human care. You go $300, $400, $800 to try to treat your pet that has a problem. And ours, with no illness, we don't have that expense. And our customers who are feeding their dogs Gentle Giants, or cats their Gentle Giants, cat and kitten food, they don't have the illness. So it's something that it's our life's work. It's our charity. And by the way, we take no salary whatsoever from it. We've never taken a dime in salary. We never will. We consider this our charity. So that's what we do. And that, believe it or not, is what we do, that our life's work. And yet at the same time, because of being successful financially, both my wife and I, we're able to still go out and make our movies and stuff and help animals live longer and healthier.
Yeah, that's incredible. That really is incredible work. Because I want to, obviously we've got to talk about this. So, so moving on from Extraction 2 to talk about this, I mean, that was really passionate. So where did your real love of animals, because this is not just I like dogs, I like cats. This is a real love of animals. Where did that come from?
Both my wife and I, many years before we ever met each other, grew up loving animals and caring for animals. And by the way, I would like to mention, if I may, our websites
Of
for
course.
people around the world. They can go to www.gentle, Gentle, giants, GIANTS, dogfood.com, or www.gentlegiantscatfood.com. And they can read all about it, and they can see all these videos, all these television shows. We've been on so many TV shows and so many interview shows, and so many television programs have actually come out to film our dogs. Well, we had one dog here that someone gave up this dog that was 11 years old. They took it to a shelter because they thought it was going to die. They didn't want it to die in their home. So they took it to the shelter. The shelter called us. This was a giant breed dog, a Russian wolfhound, similar to an Irish wolfhound. They only live 7 to 9 years, but this dog had made it to 10 and a half years of age and was on his way out. We went and picked up the dog, put him on our food. And at 25 years of age, the television program Inside Edition heard about this, came out, spent an entire day filming, and they, at an entire day of filming, this dog and our other dogs, and they created a marvelous segment called "Could This Be the Oldest Living Pooch in the World?" This dog that was dying at 10 and a half was 25 years old when they came out and filmed, and she lived another 2.5 years to 27 and a half, 4 times her normal lifespan. You can't do that with regular food. You can't do that. You have to have something special for these animals that keeps them away from pesticides and cancer-causing ingredients.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, so as people can see on this picture behind you, all these wonderful animals, and you barely look like you've got any room. Where do they all live? Do they literally just live everywhere?
They live in our house.
Well,
They're not just visiting. No. They're
No,
in
no,
our
I mean,
house
do you have-
24/7.
Do you have special places for them all, or do they just roam?
Well, we have 5 acres. We have a
Okay.
beautiful property that's landscaped 5 acres. But let me tell you something which you might be surprised. You see these big dogs,
Yes.
okay? And you'd think that they want to be outside all the time. No. Let me tell you how they are. They all want to go out and play for 10 or 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
after 15 minutes, they're scratching at our door. Now, that's the only thing they do. They'll scratch at the door, and they can take a door down eventually if you don't open that door. And they want to be inside. So when I get up in the morning, you see them there. They
Yeah.
follow me. I go to my kitchen. My kitchen's full. I go to my living room. Everywhere we go, there's dogs. And this isn't just for a few weeks. This has been for 31 years.
Wow.
I have lived with 50 dogs. My wife and I lived together we've been together 35 years, but for 31 years, we've been in our beautiful home that has had an average of 50 dogs at any given time.
How do you remember all their names?
I can't, but my wife, Tracy, she can not only tell you the names of all 50 we have here, she knows, and I know it's almost impossible to believe, but she was once tested and she got over 300 names when people said finally don't, and she was naming every dog's name that had ever been here. She has a photographic memory that is just unbelievable, which is very difficult for a husband because she remembers all my faults. You know, I mean, she'll tell me about something. You shouldn't have done this 10 years ago. Oh my God, 10 years ago. You know, she remembers everything.
Holy, don't do anything wrong, Batman. Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Oh wow. So where did the idea for the pet products come from? Did somebody approach you? Was it your idea, or was it your wife's idea, or was it just something
We
that
couldn't
came
stand to
together?
see him dying. We
Yeah.
watched him dying young, and we couldn't stand it. And we said there's, and we didn't know that we would be very successful. We thought, for example, if we made the very best food that could be made, I mean, we can afford it, the very best food, maybe they could live an extra year. You know what I mean? Maybe a year and a half. But what we found out was so upsetting. It has changed our life forever. And I want to tell you, unfortunately, about pet food manufacturers, at least all the ones that we're aware of. Every pet food manufacturer knows something the average person doesn't know, which is the more fat content they put in the food, the hungrier it makes the dog. And it actually affects, or cat, affects their brain to think they're always hungry. and they do this to make them eat more, to make you buy more pet food. How incredibly unscrupulous that is.
Yeah, that's
And
awful.
the other problem is they not only fill the food with fat, they spray the outside and coat the food with fat. And I try to explain to people, I said, think of it this way. If you cook some bacon or a chicken or a turkey, would you take that grease and pour it down your sink? Oh, of course not. Well, why wouldn't you do it? Well, it would clog my pipes. And when it hardened, I don't know, I'd have to have a plumber come out and dig out my pipes. I said, that's right. So when you realize that animal fat will ruin the pipes in your sink in your kitchen, why would anyone ever feed an animal a food that every single kibble, every single bite is encapsulated in animal fat? They don't care how long dogs live. It's all about money. But we care how long they live. It's our life's work and it's our charity. And I want to make it clear, we didn't discover the fountain of youth. Believe me, I wish I had, because I'd be drinking from it. We're just not prematurely killing dogs and cats and other animals. We're helping them live to their maximum. And they can live a lot longer when you don't feed them food that has cancer-causing ingredients in the food.
Yeah. So what's the oldest dog or cat you have in your house at the moment?
I think 26.
Wow.
But in cats, we lost our last two cats. One was 31 and one was 32 eating our food. But the oldest dog we've had here is 27 and 10 months. We do have a customer, and we're actually going to his house. We're in Southern California. We're going to Arizona, next state over. He lives in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And on January 3rd of this year, about a month and a half ago, almost 2 months ago, his dog turned 31 years of age. And we're going to film that dog. And I had asked him, I've actually known him now for 2 years. We went out and filmed his dog at 29, and we're going back to celebrate now that he's over 30 years of age at a birthday party we're creating for his birthday, 31st birthday. But the point of it is, I asked him, I said, well, how do you really know how old your dog is? He said, I was at the animal shelter rescuing my dog when that dog came in at 6 weeks of age. He said, I know exactly how old that dog is. And that was 31 years ago. I mean, and he's got, rabies certificate. He's got medical records. I mean, that's the real thing. And the dog is still healthy. He still plays. I mean, he can still run even, but he obviously doesn't run as fast as when he was a puppy. Yeah. But he's living a full normal life 31 years later from his birth.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So this is a dog that has used your Gentle Giant pet products then?
16 and a half years. Yeah, he's been on our food.
Wow, that is
and no illness. He's the only time that dog has never been sick once. He said the only time the dog goes every 3 years has got to go to get the rabies update because it's required by federal law here in the United States. Rabies shots.
Wow. So this is expanding into Europe this year, and
this year we're coming. We're now actually starting to make the food. We're going to be making the food. There's certain ingredients that is required in each country. Oh my goodness. And they're very stringent about the ingredients. Whoa, are they stringent about? But because our food is all non-GMO, and actually there's kind of a big thing going on now in the UK. I've heard that a lot of the foods that people assumed were non-GMO turned out to be GMO. But we're 100% non-GMO, no genetically modified organisms in our food, and that's why our food is so much healthier. And I tell people, once you start feeding a dog or a cat on a diet that doesn't have any genetically modified organisms in it, and which is the best chance to avoid cancer, that is the best chance, you still have to be very careful about introducing treats or something you feed from your table. In other words, we tell people when you're starting to feed Gentle Giants, don't just, if you get some milk bone treat or some kind of a treat for a dog and your neighbor says, oh, here, I just bought these, let me give your dog one of these treats. You have to say no, not unless it says certified non-GMO on the outside of the packaging. because the very thing you're trying to avoid is cancer. And you can introduce the cancer into the dog through a treat or even
Yeah.
from food from your table if you didn't buy non-GMO food at the supermarket. Most people are eating food that has been genetically modified. 90%, excuse me, 95% of the food supply of both human and animals in the United States has been genetically modified. It's very hard. We go after the 2% that's available for animals. That's all there is. Only 2% of the food supply. And when we got certified as non-GMO, not only did the plant that make our food had to, warrant the certification, but every supplier of every individual ingredient had to furnish certification of that their ingredient that they were supplying was non-GMO. I mean, they
Wow.
right down to the source to make sure. But this is the best protection you could have to avoid cancer.
Wow, that's incredible. Right, well, I suppose we get on to your final choice, which is your soundtrack before we get towards the end. Yeah, I'm still I'm still stunned from all of the information there. So please tell us, what music would you have with you?
You know, I there's so many. I love movie soundtracks, so as a result, it's very hard. I remember there was a famous movie called The Sandpiper. You
Mhm.
know, and with Elizabeth Taylor and the theme music. You know what I mean? The Shadow of Your Smile. I believe that was the song, the main theme song. There is a wonderful kind of sentimental soundtrack from a smaller movie that Christopher Reeve was in called Somewhere in Time. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with that?
I am, yep.
But I guess the overall soundtrack, my favorite, was written by Michel Legrand, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
J'avais tellement peur de ne pas te trouver. Je suis si heureux d'être avec toi. Maintenant je ris parce que je me rends compte combien je suis bête quand je suis toute seule.
Yes, classic choice, yes. So
Uh,
so
so,
do you
so
love the movie as much as you love the soundtrack?
uh, the movie you can't watch too many times
No.
because you really can see what it is. For me, I need more of an action movie to be
Yeah.
able to watch it multiple times. I have to have that that action.
Yeah. But so what is it about this soundtrack in particular that really moves you?
Oh, it just, it's so sentimental, and only the French can really, they can really just draw out the last bit of emotion from you. You know what I mean? Where two people are together, and the young guy has got to go to war, and he writes to her, but the mother doesn't want her to marry him. She wants her to marry some wealthy guy, so she hides the letters, and they go their separate ways, and they end up marrying separate people, and then at the end of the movie they run into each other at a gas station that he's operating, and oh my god, there's nobody. I mean, you go in there with a bath towel to watch that in a theater, everybody's crying. It just so magnificently sentimental, and the music, oh, Michel Legrand, oh, his score is breathtaking, just breathtaking, just phenomenal, beautiful music.
Talk to me a little bit about the pet rescuing. So, because that's obviously slightly different from the pet food. So,
Right. Well, that's what precipitated. We started when what happened was we were living by the beach in Southern California in the Los Angeles area. We're blocked from the beach at a beautiful home overlooking the ocean. And my wife and I had a daughter, and she was like, growing up where the property near you don't have a lot of extra property, so to speak. It's so valuable, that property. So we only had 5 feet on 3 sides of our house and 15 feet in front. But the house went way up, like 4 stories and all these balconies. And here you see a 3-year-old walking out on a balcony on the 3rd story. Oh no. Our lives, we were wrecks. We're moving inland, and we're going to get one level, and it's going to be solid ground, and we did. And then when we moved here, where we live, which is like the last Western town in America, this little city called Norco, Norco, Horses have the right of way over cars. I mean, every building, commercial building, has to have a Western theme. I mean, they look like the Old West. Every commercial building has to have a horse tie-up where you tie up the horses and your horse. And on the weekends, they have hundreds. One group alone has got 250 riders, and they ride right past the front of our house down to the river, where this river is 350 miles long, and it's beautiful. It's kind of looks like Southeast Asia. It's so tropical down there where the river is, and it's animal friendly. And so this is where we were allowed to have animals. So to answer your question is, when we were getting a dog for our daughter, my wife had grown up liking Irish Wolfhounds. I liked Great Danes, and we started looking around, and there weren't commercially available. But then we heard of one that needed to be rescued. And we said, well, what do you mean rescue? Well, rescue usually it means that someone has a dog, and for whatever reason, or cat, and they can't keep it, and they need to find a home for it, because if they don't, and they turn it into a shelter, the shelters are overflowing, and it's so bad at the shelters that if you take a dog to a shelter, half the time when you leave, they kill it before you leave the parking lot. It is horrible. It is hard, and it's not, and the people don't want to do it who work there, but there's too many homeless animals. You know, at one point in America, there were 1 million dogs a month being put to death in America. 70% of them were puppies, unwanted puppies from overbreeding. I mean, it's just so horrible. So we rescued this dog, so it didn't have to go to a shelter. And we heard, and then we heard about other ones that they say, well, they're in our home. We're looking for, someone to rescue it. And so we figured, well, they'll find somebody just like somebody found us, right? And then we heard about 2 months later that, oh, you got to do something. What do you mean? What's the matter? All these Great Danes are dying in shelters. Well, why? No, they were in people's homes. People eventually had to give them up. No rescue. And they go to the shelter, and all these big gentle giants, that's what they call them. They're so big and they're so gentle. The bigger they are, the more gentle they are. And we found out that almost every breed of dog and cat has a rescue. There's like a German Shepherd rescue and a Chihuahua rescue. And there had been a Great Dane rescue in Southern California, but the lady operating it herself had died, and there was no rescue. And all of them were being put to death. All of them. So this was the first week in August of 1994. Look at that. 31 years ago, that I said to my wife, Tracy, we can't let these dogs die. How about just for a week or two till we find somebody else to take this over? Let's go get them and bring them to our home and take care of them. By the end of August, 3 weeks later, we had 102 full-size Great Danes in our house and 61 puppies under 7 weeks of age that we had rescued from shelters, because even the shelters didn't want to put the puppy litters down. They said, get them out of here before they get illness or before we have to put them down. And my wife, Tracy, was sleeping on our kitchen floor for 3 to 4 months. And the reason for that is, with each litter and the mother, you have to bring it in. You have to get the mother to lie down. You have to get the puppies. You got to attach them. Got to make sure everyone gets nutrition. And then the mother wanting to get up, because no dog wants to do this very long. Okay, they'll do it for maybe at the most 20 minutes, something like that. Then they want to get up and go to the bathroom. In the case of a Great Dane, they're so big that if they stepped on any of the puppies, it would kill them. So now you're trying, as a person, my wife, watching 4 giant legs and 9 puppies, and that's 13 combinations, trying to keep from somebody getting stepped on, getting that mother outside to go to the bathroom, collecting all the puppies, getting them into a warm area. We kept them like in a bathtub or whatever, and things like that, or in our bathrooms. There were certain places we had that were warm, that we had heater, to keep them extra warm so they're comfortable. And then you bring the next litter in, and you do the whole thing. And by the time you get finished, okay, with the 7th litter, it's time to start the first one over again. She slept on the kitchen floor for 4 months, my wife.
That is dedication.
And she personally has spent an average of 8 hours a day some days many longer, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for 31 years. We have
Wow.
never, we've left our property for like 4, 5, 6, maybe once in a while, 7 hours, but that's it. That's it. No holidays off, no Christmases off, no vacations to Europe or to Hawaii or anywhere else. We've been there caring for these animals for 31 years. And that's why we know so much. Imagine if you or any of your viewers or listeners lived with 50, and these are different breeds. Look behind me. We have 45 different breeds of dogs here. Can you imagine living with 50 dogs in your home, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 31 years? That's why we know so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one dog, and her is enough for me. 50. Wow. My wife would probably like it, but wow, that's dedication. That's really, really impressive. So well done you and well done to your wife. So everybody, I'm going to put the links below so they can look into
Please,
this.
our website, so they can look at all the videos and see.
Absolutely.
One of the things that people love, they'll call me up and they'll say, I can't believe it. I'm watching a video with all these dogs in their 20s running around like puppies. I can't believe how you do this. And this is a level of dedication and a level of expertise that we've developed all these years. You learn something, you refine it, you modify this, that. And now with our food, it works perfectly. It absolutely works perfectly.
Amazing. So you have locked in Home Alone. You have locked in Olympus Has Fallen. You have locked in Extraction 2 and the soundtrack to the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. So are you happy with those choices?
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, everybody, like I said, check out the links below. I will link everything up. If there's social media, I will link all that up as well. And we will get that all done. So all it does is leave me to say thank you very, very much, Mr. Burt Ward. This has been an amazing episode of Desert Island Movies, and it will long remain one of my favorites, I'm fairly certain. So once again, thank you very much for joining the island. This has been Desert Island Movies. Anything you would like to add?
Well, as we said on Batman, to the Batmobile.
Amazing. And I can't do better than that. So thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next time on Desert Island Movies. Goodbye.